So a few nights ago, my sleep was broken in the most unexpected way. In the stillness of that night, Jesus came and revealed to me that humanity has been clinging to only half the truth about why we were created. For centuries, the church has faithfully taught fragments of the story, but what I was shown completes the picture in a way that reframes everything. It wasn't a gentle whisper or a vague impression. It was a revelation that cut through centuries of misunderstanding and filled me with both awe and urgency. He said the missing piece is why so many souls walk through life feeling like shadows of themselves, never realizing the depth of their worth or the sacredness of their identity. What he spoke wasn't written in any theology book I'd studied, and it wasn't tangled in doctrine or theory. It was personal. It was intimate. It was like being handed a key that opened a door I didn't know I had been pressing against my entire life. I'm telling you this now, from the quiet corner of a library where I sit surrounded by towering shelves of human wisdom. The late afternoon sun spills golden light through tall windows, and though open books and notes are scattered in front of me, I cannot bring myself to read a single page. My thoughts are chained to that dream, to that voice, to that truth. I was supposed to be studying scripts for the upcoming season of The Chosen, but the words on those pages pale compared to the living message still burning inside me. Playing Jesus these past years has been the honor of my life, but that honor has also brought with it a relentless undercurrent of questions. Questions about why God created us, questions about purpose, questions about whether I have ever truly understood the heart behind it all. I've devoured books, spoken to scholars, wrestled in prayer, but the hunger only grew sharper. And then came those long, sleepless nights, the ones where you lie awake staring into the darkness at 3 a.m., whispering to yourself, "Why am I here? What is any of this for?" I had been living in that space of quiet desperation, where even success and recognition couldn't fill the silence left by that unanswered cry. The timing of it all wasn't accidental. Just weeks ago, we were filming the most wrenching scenes of season 6, moments that capture Christ's final hours with his disciples. The weight of it pressed down on me day after day until I felt hollowed out, asking God if I was truly worthy of standing in that role, if I was embodying his love or simply pretending at it. And beneath all that, deeper still, was a gnawing hunger, not for validation but for meaning itself. I wasn't asking only about my role in front of the camera. I was asking about existence. I was asking why God had even chosen to bring forth beings like us, who stumble, who ache, who search and fall short. One night, after filming, I sat alone on a hotel balcony, the city lights flickering below me, and asked the question that had been clawing at my soul. If God is perfect and complete, why create anything at all? What was stirring in his heart before he breathed galaxies into place, before he formed humanity from dust? What was his intention when he spoke life into being? The thought terrified and fascinated me. An all-sufficient God, choosing to make fragile beings who would struggle, doubt, sin, and love in such imperfect ways. Why take such a risk? What could possibly be worth it? That evening, I prayed differently than I ever had before. Not for blessing, not for help, not even for strength to keep going. I asked him boldly, almost recklessly, "Why did you make us? What was in your heart when you chose to bring us into existence?" It felt dangerous, as if I had dared to step into the inner chambers of the divine mind. But I couldn't stop myself. I had been reading Genesis, staring at those words, made in his image, again and again. And it struck me like a hollow riddle. Image of God, yes. But why? For what? To rule? To steward? Those sounded like tasks, not motives. I knew there had to be something deeper, something tenderer, something that spoke not of duty, but of desire. That hunger consumed me in every quiet moment. On long flights between takes, in the thin silence before dawn call times. No answer in the commentaries could satisfy the ache. I felt desperate, like an actor fumbling to understand the core drive of the character he is meant to play. How could I portray divine love when I did not fully grasp why that love had chosen to create us at all? And then came that night. I whispered into the darkness the rawest prayer I had ever spoken. God, show me. Show me why you made us. Show me what was in your heart when you dreamed humanity into being. Don't just tell me our purpose. Tell me yours. With that plea still trembling on my lips, sleep overtook me. I had no idea that I was about to step into a dream unlike anything I'd ever experienced. A dream where reality itself seemed to bend, where every color was alive with holiness, where the air hummed with peace too pure for this world. It began in a garden, Not Eden, not heaven as I had imagined them, but a place beyond both, familiar and yet otherworldly. And in that garden, waiting for me with eyes that burned with joy, was Jesus. This was not the Jesus I portray on camera, not the Jesus I imagine in prayer. This was Jesus unveiled, radiant, resplendent, love so fierce it felt like sunlight pouring over my skin. The moment I saw him, tears broke from me, not of sorrow, but of recognition, like a child running into the embrace of home after years lost in exile. He smiled, and in that smile was every song, every ocean wave, every laugh I had ever heard. "Jonathan," he said, his voice resonant with creation itself, "you've been asking why humanity was made. I've come to show you." I trembled as he spoke, overwhelmed yet utterly at peace. "Lord," I whispered, "I've been lost in this question. Why did you create us when you already had perfection, when you lacked nothing?" His face lit up brighter than the sun, and the entire garden seemed to glow with it. "Oh, Jonathan," he said, "you've asked the most beautiful question. The answer is not what most have been taught. It isn't about need. It isn't about duty. It isn't even primarily about glory. It is about love itself." And with that, he began to walk deeper into the garden. I followed, each step pulling me further from the old fragments of half-truths I had carried. Ahead, a river shimmered like liquid light. Jesus reached toward it, and as his fingers brushed the surface, ripples spread outward, not just through the water, but through me. And then he said words that would begin to unravel and remake me entirely. Perfect love, by its nature, creates. As he spoke those words, perfect love by its very nature creates. Something inside me shifted. The thought was so simple and yet so vast that it seemed to stretch across eternity. This wasn't about loneliness or lack. It wasn't about God needing something he didn't already have. It was about a love so complete, so overflowing, that creation itself was inevitable. Love had to give. Love had to share. Love had to pour itself outward until galaxies burned, rivers flowed, and hearts like mine learned to beat. Jesus walked slowly through the garden, his robe brushing against blades of grass that shimmered as if alive with light. I followed close behind, unable to take my eyes off him. His presence radiated warmth like sunlight after a storm, wrapping me in peace I'd never known while awake. He paused beside a stream, the water glimmering as though it carried starlight in its current. Kneeling, he let his hand skim the surface. Instantly, waves of brilliance rippled outward, reflections dancing across his face. "Every act of creation," he said, "is love overflowing." He looked at me with eyes that held eternity. When the stars were spoken into being, it was love expressing itself. When mountains rose from the deep, when life was breathed into Adam, each moment was love giving itself away. My chest ached as the truth soaked into me. All the fragments I had collected, glory, worship, fellowship, they weren't wrong, but they were incomplete. The heartbeat of creation wasn't duty, it was joy. Then his expression grew even more tender, if that were possible. "But humanity," he said softly, "humanity was different." He rose, and the entire garden seemed to swell with his words. "You weren't made only to receive love, Jonathan. You were made to give it, to be capable of love yourselves, to join in the very nature of love that shaped the universe." I couldn't hold back the tears streaming down my face. "So we exist because love needed somewhere to go." My voice trembled. His smile was brighter than dawn. "You exist because love desired to create creatures who could be love. Not accidents, not servants, not afterthoughts. You are love's greatest expression." He motioned for me to sit beside him on a rock that glowed as though carved from pure light. I sat, still shaking from the weight of what he'd said. The air hummed around us as he leaned closer. "Every human being," he whispered, "carries within them the same kind of love that birthed creation. When you show kindness to a stranger, when you create beauty, when you sacrifice for someone else, you are fulfilling the very reason you exist." It struck me like lightning. We weren't here to prove ourselves worthy, to earn favor, to climb some endless ladder toward God. We were here because we already were love's expression. Every person who ever breathed was a living echo of that first overflow. Jesus' voice rang with certainty. That's why every human life holds infinite value, no matter the failures, no matter the scars. You aren't valuable because of what you achieve. You're valuable because you are love incarnate, the universe learning to love from within itself. You are God's way of experiencing love from inside creation. The garden pulsed around us as though agreeing with him. Trees seemed to sway in rhythm with his words, flowers releasing fragrance sweeter than anything I'd ever known. I felt small, yet more alive than I'd ever felt in my life. We made you in our image, he continued, his voice echoing through the stillness. Not as statues, not as ornaments, but as reflections of the same overflowing love that brought stars into existence. You are not just objects of love. You are subjects of it, expressions of it, extensions of it. In that moment, I knew I was standing inside the answer humanity had been aching for since the beginning. We weren't created to meet some divine need. We were created because perfect love could not help but overflow. It had to take form, had to spread, had to breathe itself into new wonders. And in us, love found its clearest voice. Jesus rose, his eyes sweeping across the endless beauty of that garden, and then he turned back to me with an intensity that stole my breath. Jonathan, I want to show you 7 truths about why humanity exists. These are not theories or doctrines. They are the heartbeat of creation itself, and they will answer every longing you've ever carried. I felt my spirit brace itself, like a traveler standing at the edge of an undiscovered world. He raised his hand as if painting the air with light and declared, "The first truth, you exist as love's creative expression. Before time began, the love between Father, Spirit, and me was so abundant, so uncontainable that it spilled into creation. You are not necessity, you are celebration, you are what happens when perfect love is free to create without restraint." The words pierced me, filling every empty corner of my heart like a long-lost piece sliding perfectly into a puzzle. Jesus leaned closer, his eyes burning brighter. Second truth, your very capacity for love proves your divine origin. Every time you are moved by beauty, every time you sacrifice, every time you create something meaningful, you reveal the same love that called the universe into being. The garden seemed to sing with his words, a chorus rising from light, water, and air itself. I could barely breathe as he continued. Third truth, your existence brings us infinite joy, not tolerance, not duty, joy. Every human life is a cause for divine celebration. Every breath you take is treasured. His delight was contagious. I felt my heart rise as if the garden itself had lifted me. This was not the God I had grown up hearing about in sermons. This was love laughing, love celebrating, love alive, and he wasn't finished. The garden seemed to tremble with his words, as if every leaf and every ripple of water bore witness to the truth spilling from his lips. My heart pounded in rhythm with his voice, each revelation cutting away layers of misunderstanding I had carried for years. He leaned closer, and the radiance in his eyes pulled me deeper into the mystery. Fourth truth, he said, his tone rich with compassion. Your struggles and your growth give meaning to love itself. Perfect love is not displayed in sculpting flawless beings. It shines brightest when it embraces imperfection. Every moment of doubt, every stumble, every choice to rise again, that is love's triumph. When you forgive in the midst of betrayal, when you choose kindness even while wounded, you're not failing us, you're allowing love to show its greatest power. I felt the words reverberate through me. Memories of my own failings, my battles with fear, the heaviness of portraying Christ while feeling unworthy, all of it took on new light. The very weaknesses I had seen as disqualifications were, in his eyes, opportunities for love to reveal itself as unstoppable. His joy swelled as he continued. Fifth truth, your unique perspective enriches all creation. Not one of you sees the world in exactly the same way, and this was never an accident. Each soul is a note in the grand symphony, and when you create, when you wonder, when you contribute even the smallest act of beauty, you're adding something to existence that has never been before. The garden itself seemed to illustrate his point. 1,000 blossoms of different colors opened around us, no two alike, yet together forming a breathtaking harmony. Tears stung my eyes. For so long I had searched for meaning in perfection, but now I understood that diversity, imperfection, even contrast, these were the colors love had chosen for its canvas. Then his voice softened, filled with a tenderness that pierced me. Sixth truth, your relationships are the training ground of divine love. Every embrace of family, every act of friendship, every moment of forgiveness, even toward your enemies, these are not separate from spiritual life. They are spiritual life. In them, you are rehearsing eternity. In them, you are practicing the overflow of perfect love into imperfect worlds. My breath caught as I considered it. All the messy, complicated relationships that had stretched me thin suddenly appeared sacred. Arguments, reconciliations, laughter, heartbreak, all of it was shaping me into someone capable of loving with divine depth. And seventh truth, Jesus said, his voice now carrying the weight of eternity. Your destiny is to be conscious co-creators with us. This world is not merely a waiting room for heaven. It is your apprenticeship in divine creativity. Every problem you solve, every life you heal, every act of love you pour into another, you are learning to join us in shaping reality itself. You are partners in creation. He paused then, and his eyes held mine with such profound affection that I felt both undone and remade. Most believe the purpose of life is to escape earth and reach heaven, but the truth, he said gently, is to bring heaven into earth, to become our hands, our voices, our living love woven into this world. The silence afterward was thick with holiness. My thoughts reeled, yet my heart rested in a peace I had never known. So when people feel restless, I whispered, when they ache as though something is missing, that's the echo of their origin, isn't it? His face brightened, joy spilling from him like sunrise. Yes, Jonathan, the restlessness is love calling to love. The incompleteness is the soul remembering it was made for something infinitely more beautiful, and that is why earthly things will never fully satisfy. You were not shaped for them alone. You were created for the thrill of love, finding expression through you. I closed my eyes, trembling as his words settled into my bones. So when we create beauty, when we forgive, when we show mercy, we are stepping into the very reason we exist? Exactly, he said, the certainty in his voice like fire. Every human being carries the seed of divine creativity. Some will paint, some will heal, some will simply spread joy. The form does not matter. What matters is that love is being given form through you. He lifted his hand and gestured around us, to the shimmering stream, to the trees heavy with fruit, to the sky painted in impossible colors. Look, Jonathan, everything here exists because love could not hold itself back. And humanity, every face, every heart is the same love in physical form. Love learning to love, love expressing itself in uncountable ways. The weight of it pressed on me until I whispered through tears, then dignity, human dignity must be absolute. Jesus' gaze burned with agreement. Yes, it is not measured by success or failure, by morality or achievement. It is rooted in one truth. Each person is love incarnate. Each one is the universe's attempt to know itself through creatures capable of choice, of compassion, of creation. I covered my face with my hands, overwhelmed by the beauty, by the clarity. My voice cracked as I said, so we're not struggling to earn a place in your love. We are your love, waking up to itself. His laughter was soft but full of joy, and he nodded. Now you see, no one needs to become worthy of love. They only need to discover that they already are love's expression. The garden brightened around us, light spilling across every surface, as if creation itself were celebrating this truth. Then Jesus leaned even closer, and his gaze pierced straight through me with a love so overwhelming that I felt I might collapse beneath its weight. Jonathan, he said softly, do you want to feel what we felt when humanity first came into being? Do you want to taste the joy of creation itself, the very delight of love taking form in a being capable of love? Before I could speak, his hand pressed against my chest. A surge of warmth, brighter than fire but gentler than sunlight, flooded through me. Suddenly, I was no longer only myself. I was inside the heart of God. I felt anticipation stretch across eternity. The hush before the first breath was drawn into human lungs. I felt delight explode like galaxies when the first thought shimmered in the mind of a human soul. I felt joy that could not be contained when love awakened for the very first time inside the creature made in his image. It was like watching a child's first step multiplied 1,000-fold. The rush of pride, the tears of wonder, the wild celebration of seeing something fragile and beautiful step into its destiny. Only this wasn't one child. This was humanity itself. This was the Father, the Son, and the Spirit rejoicing as their own infinite love spilled into time, into flesh, into story. The joy was so fierce I could hardly endure it, and I sobbed uncontrollably, my whole being shaking with the immensity of it. This, Jesus whispered, his voice like music woven into light, this is how we feel about every single human being. Each birth is greeted with this same joy. Each awakening to love brings this same celebration. Each act of kindness, each gesture of mercy, it all stirs heaven into song. My heart felt like it would burst apart from the magnitude of it. But Lord, I managed through tears, we fail so much. We wound each other. We forget who we are. We live as though we're far from you. His response was so tender it undid me all over again. Oh, Jonathan, he said, his hand still steady over my heart. Even that is part of the beauty. Love is most radiant when it chooses in the face of struggle. When you love in the middle of pain, when you forgive after betrayal, when you bring light into the darkest corners, that is when love reveals its true strength. The angels, who have never known struggle, can never mirror love's beauty in the same way humanity can. His words were a balm, washing over my shame and fear. Every choice of love over fear, he continued. Every moment of forgiveness over bitterness. Every spark of hope against despair. These are victories for love itself. They do not weaken the story, they complete it. I felt the heart of God beating through me, felt his relentless tenderness for every human story, his infinite patience for every faltering step. I saw his delight in the smallest act of compassion, the gentlest choice of kindness, even when no one else noticed. It was as though he was saying, nothing is wasted when it is touched by love. We never give up on anyone, Jesus said firmly, his eyes blazing with conviction. Every soul still carries within them the same seed of love that called them into being. Some discover it early, others late, some not until after this life, but the seed is never lost, for it is their essence, that is who they are. In that instant I realized why playing Jesus had felt like such a holy burden. Every scene, every word I spoke on set, every attempt to embody his love, it wasn't mere acting, it was discovery. It was tasting the truth of how he actually feels toward humanity, unshakably patient, endlessly tender, fiercely committed to the good of every single soul. He looked at me again, his face alive with a joy that felt like sunrise after endless night. Jonathan, this is why I came, not only to lift the weight of sin, but to remind you of who you already are, love in human form. I came so that creation would remember its true identity. I came to restore the vision of what it always meant to be human. The garden seemed to pulse with his words, every tree and flower leaning in as if creation itself was listening. Your failures do not define you, he continued. Your struggles do not shame you. In my eyes, they are opportunities for love to reveal its glory. What you call weakness, we see as the very stage for grace. His compassion undid me. I wept openly, my chest heaving with the unbearable beauty of it. In his voice, I heard no disappointment, no condemnation, only the steady certainty that every human being, no matter how broken, was still destined for love's victory. This, he said, his hand still glowing against my heart, is how heaven looks at humanity, not with judgment, but with anticipation, not with despair, but with delight in what will be. Every life is love learning to love. Some are just beginning, some are well along, some seem lost, but all are on the same journey, and we rejoice in each step because love never fails. As he spoke, I understood something that split me wide open. The restlessness I had always carried, the endless search for meaning, had never been a flaw. It was love stretching the boundaries of my small heart, preparing me to contain more than I ever thought possible. The ache was not emptiness, it was growth. It was God's own longing alive inside me. The vision began to fade, but the truth remained as vivid as fire written on my soul. I found myself back in the garden with Jesus, though everything in me had changed. The gnawing questions that had haunted me for months were gone, replaced by a deep peace and a sense of purpose that felt unshakable. My breath trembled in the silence as I whispered, Lord, what do I do with all this? How do I share something so vast, so beautiful? He smiled, the kind of smile that feels like the sunrise chasing away the night. Jonathan, he said, his voice steady and rich with joy, when you wake, you'll remember everything, and you'll know this revelation wasn't just for you. It is for every soul that has ever wondered why they exist. Tell them they are not accidents. Tell them they are not mistakes. They are not forgotten or unloved. They are love's greatest expression. My chest tightened as I nodded, feeling the weight of the call pressing gently but firmly against me. But how? I asked again. How do I help people see this truth when the world teaches them the opposite? Jesus' eyes burned brighter, alive with delight. Live it, he said. Live as though you know who you are. Love like you've discovered your true nature. Create as if you remember your origin. The truth isn't only taught, it's shown. When people see authentic love in action, they recognize their own reflection in it. When they witness compassion, generosity, creativity, or mercy, something deep inside them stirs. They remember what they were made for. You don't have to convince anyone. Just embody the truth and it will awaken the truth within them. Tears spilled down my cheeks again. His words sank into me like seeds falling on fertile ground already beginning to grow. I could sense my own life, my own choices, my own presence being transformed into a living echo of what I had just witnessed. Then, just before the vision lifted completely, he said one last thing. His voice grew softer, but it carried the weight of eternity. Remember this. Every person you meet is love in disguise. Some wear the mask so well they've forgotten who they are. Others are beginning to shine through their disguise. But behind every story, every scar, every face, the same reality remains. Love learning to love. The dream dissolved, and I woke with tears streaming down my face. But they were tears of joy, not sorrow. Everything made sense now. The restlessness I had lived with, the ache that no accomplishment could silence, the longing for something deeper, it had all been love calling to love. It was divinity within me recognizing itself in the reflection of creation, the eternal reaching into the temporary and whispering, "You belong, you are more than you thought, you are love itself in form." Now, sitting here in the library, golden light pouring across the books and pages before me, I feel the urge to pray, not only for myself, but for everyone who will ever hear this story. Father, I lift up every heart listening now. Show them their true identity. For those who feel worthless, remind them they exist because love could not be contained. For those who feel lost or wandering, let them see their life as love's most beautiful creation. For those broken by self-hatred, heal their vision so they can see themselves the way you do, beloved, radiant, necessary expressions of divine creativity. Lord, teach us to stop striving to earn love. Teach us to rest in the truth that we are love, discovering itself again and again. Help us to see others not as strangers or competitors, but as fellow reflections of the same divine heart. Open our eyes to find the sacred hidden in the ordinary, the eternal shimmering in the temporary. Transform our living so that we love boldly, forgive freely, create fearlessly, and recognize beauty wherever it appears. For those who are crushed beneath shame, for those who feel unseen, surround them with voices and faces that reflect back to them their true worth. Let them encounter the same overwhelming delight you feel for them. Let them know their birth was celebrated in heaven. Let them sense your unshakable joy every time they take a breath, every time they dare to love, every time they shine. Thank you, Father, for showing me that existence itself is an act of love, that every human being is a miracle of divine imagination carried into form. Help us never to forget. Help us live as what we truly are, love in human skin, divine creativity walking the earth, heaven touching clay. You are loved beyond measure, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You exist because perfect love could not hold itself back. It had to create you. And that means your story, your journey, your presence here is no accident. If this message has stirred something in you, I hope you'll stay connected on this journey. Subscribe, share, and tell your story of when you first recognized God's love in your life. Because the truth is, we are all love learning to love. And when we remember that, everything changes.